So, this is the first part of the course where we will be building our machine learning model. The first part of the code that is telling you from google.colab import drive. So this is basically trying to connect the drive storage to your Google Colab so that Google Colab can access the drive. Next, as you can see, I have imported the necessary libraries which will help in data handling and data manipulation. Some of you might not know, but Seaborn is a library that complements or supports the Matplotlib library, since both of them work well when we need to visualize the data. Now the next thing you can see is that I have called random forest classifier, that is our model, and to judge its accuracy, I'm using some metrics like accuracy score and classification report. Next, you can see I'm calling random forest classifier, and just to make one thing clear about random forest classifier is that this classifier overfits very easily on the data. So while we are training and testing, if we get a very high training accuracy but a very low testing accuracy, that means that the model has overfit on the data. Well, I've also provided the link to the dataset as a backup in case you want to know where this dataset came from or if you want to understand more about the dataset. Now the first thing I'm doing is calling out the dataset and storing it in a variable named Pokemon data. Now you can see that I'm using the head function of my data frame to see the first 5 values in my dataset. And as you can see, it has a lot of columns and a lot of them are categorical columns, which I will talk about later. But from the info, you must have understood that which column is a target variable. As I talked about in the intro also, that our main purpose is to understand and predict which Pokemon is legendary. So from the dataset you can see that is legendary column will be our target variable. Now moving on, from this point on we start with our exploratory data analysis and handling of null values. So first thing you can see is I'm using a isNull function and a sum function. This is basically telling me the sum of the number of time null value has occurred in each column. And as you can see, it is giving me 371, 77, 530 for the particular columns, and the rest are 0. Now use the shape function, which is telling me the cardinality of my data set. So it is telling me that there's 721 rows and 23 columns. So from the shape, it is clear that the data set is small and we can remove the null value columns. So why I'm directly removing and not filling the null value columns is because if I fill values that have 530 null values, it is meaning that more than half values I am filling, and it makes the data set a little biased, which is not favorable. So as I had mentioned before, type 2, egg group 2 and PR male have null values. And you can see that here, yeah, here you can see I'm removing those 2 columns, but I have specified 3. So what I'm doing with the third column, you can see that for PR male, it had only 77 missing values. So 77 missing values is like 10% of my data. So I'm not directly removing that column, I'm filling there. So if there's too much of filling to be done, I'm removing it directly. If there's less filling to be done, then I'm filling it. So what am I filling it with? You can see here, I use the value counts function, and from there I'm able to understand that for PR mail column I have this type of data and how many times they have occurred. So you can see that 0 0.5 is the mode for this column. So I'm filling it with the mode value itself. Next, I use the tail function, which is like the head function, but differs when it prints the last 5 value in my data set and not the first. So this is the describe function that I have used. Now the describe is used to view some basic statistical details like percentile, mean, standard deviation, etc. So it basically summarizes for you all the integral data that you have in your data set. You can infer a lot from it, and one thing that I will like to point out is to look for max min ranges. You can see that a minimum is supported here and a max is supported here. So you can see the range for this number column is 720, or basically 721 to 1. Similarly for total, for HP and all of the integral columns. Now why I'm actually asking you to emphasize here is because if all the columns have similar ranges, then it's good. But if it doesn't have similar ranges, then you have to standardize your data or normalize some of the columns. Now standardizing the data is basically asking you to make a range in which all of the columns having all of their different values can fit in. And normalizing is basically changing your range, that is changing your max and min value. So there are different ways you can handle normalizing and standardizing, and a lot of different approaches have been made and are used in different situations. So for example, let me just give you a simple example of how you can normalize your data. Let's say the range for one column was from 20 to 20,000. Now what you can do is use a, let's say, max min range where you're taking your value x and you're subtracting it with min value of your column, and say you're dividing it with max minus min. So let's say that there was a value x is equal to 300. So after normalizing, it changes to 300 minus 20 upon 19980. So it will turn to a very small value. So in this way, you can basically change your column or normalize your column to bring the ranges near to your other columns. Now we move forward and look at the correlation graph. So the next thing, which is this, is actually a visualization of correlation graph and all the integral values. You can see that there is the integral column or value holding column number, total, HP, attack, special defense, speed, generation, since generation is holding values from 1 to 6. And it has actually included the is legendary also, thinking that false and true are 1 and 0. And similarly other columns also. Now why I have actually implemented this has a very important reason, which is to understand from all of my data set which columns are actually useful to me or which columns are actually useful in training the model. Now you can see that this correlation actually has a value of 1 as its maximum and value of -1 as its minimum. So it ranges from -1 to 1. And you can see the values are 0.98 for a generation and number column. There's a value of -0.64 for columns has gender and is legendary. So you can see that is legendary is a lot more dependent, inversely dependent in fact, with has gender. So you understand from your data set that you have some columns, and how many of those columns are directly or inversely dependent on your categorical column, or say how many of your columns are actually giving you the same information. Meaning, let's say for two columns that are total and attack. Now they are directly proportional, I would say, and have a correlation value of 0.7, which is very high. Meaning, if two columns have a positive correlation and a very high one at that, since 0.7 is somewhat close to 1, that means that total and my other, which was attack column, are actually in one way giving me the same information. Now, actually, this doesn't happen, but when the model starts to train and it takes in values from total and attack columns, so it thinks that, yeah, nearly same things have been provided to me, which is for this dataset, it's not a problem since the dimensionality of this dataset is small, only 23. But there might happen that you have a dataset having, say, 100 columns, maybe 200 columns. Then you would like to remove at least one of these columns since they are very similar in nature, or the way they are affecting your target variable. So after that, we start off with handling our categorical columns or categorical data. Now, categorical data are like gems. They have a lot of hidden data in them. And if you're able to extract that data, your model would actually have a lot more predictive power as compared to before. So you can see that I have taken the type 1 column, and it has this many categories, which each occurring this many times. The next, you can see that I have done the same for generation, looking how many categories are present and how many times each category has occurred. Same for color, egg group 1, body style. And now comes another feature engineering part. Now this is one way of handling categorical data, and you would understand why I have used this or implemented this. Now I've used a function named replace, which is actually looking for these categories, water and ice, and then replacing it with this category. So basically, wherever replace function is looking at water or maybe having a value of ice in the column, it replaces it with water. Same I'm doing with grass bug, and you can see that here a lot of replacement has been done. So now, you know, people who are really informative about Pokemon would say that, oh my god, what has he done? But this is important because after this, handling of categorical data, I'm going to extract data, meaning I'm going to maybe build new columns using this data. And then you would understand that why I'm trying to crunch all of these categories into a smaller range of categories. So now you can see that before we had see a lot of categories, and now you can see that the number of categories has decreased, which was my motive. Now you can see that we have value counts function, which basically tells you how many times a category has occurred and all the unique categories specified. So I'm putting all of that data into a dictionary and I'm using my map function, which is basically taking that dictionary and looking out for the keys. So if in my body style has a value which is present as key in my dictionary, so it will replace that key with the value itself. Now you might not have understood clearly what has happened, so later on I will show you what this part of the code has done. Now see, my body style has quadruped and bipedal tailed and many more categories in it. But my body style new column has integer values in them. So I know that 135 times quadruped has occurred in my column as a category. So I've replaced the quadruped category with the number of times it has occurred, which is 135. Similarly for bipedal tailed and all the other categories. So this is the encoding part, basically using my categories and building new columns or new part of the data set. So you can see that now, yeah. So you can see that a lot of new columns, body style new, drag, a dark, dragon, electric, fighting, fire, and a lot more with colors also have been present here. Meaning now all of this was actually a category in one column which I've extracted, and now you can see that there's a lot of zeros and then suddenly a one has occurred and then a lot of zeros. So this is telling me that this Pokemon was actually a grass type Pokemon. So whichever type of Pokemon it was, it would present you with one there and the rest would be as zero. Similarly for color, here you can see that the color was actually green for this Pokemon. So one is present here and the rest are presented with zero. So next I'm just looking at all of the columns, the data which had the columns already and the new ones that I have made. All of them are specified here. And then I'm trying to draw the columns that are not needed now. So you can see that we started with 23 and have come up with 38 columns now. Okay, so before we dropped, we actually had 43, and after dropping, we have 38. So finally, we come to the part where our model is actually starting to get trained. So we are specifying our target variable, and after that we are using our train test split function, which is telling that have your data in the ratio of 8 is to 2, where 8 part would go into your training set and the 2 part would go to your testing set. Now I've called the random forest classifier. I'm given an parameter of n estimators is equal to 500 and telling this class or maybe the object that you have to shuffle your data before you insert the data for training the model. Now use the fit function to train and use the predict function to uh, do the predictions for my test data set. Now you can see that there's a 100% accuracy for my training set and a 99.31% accuracy for my testing set. So you can see that both of my training and testing accuracies are very very close, meaning that my data hasn't actually overfit or underfit and it has generalized well on the data set. Finally, what we will do is just save this data set or the weights of save this weights of the model and use it directly to predict when we will be building our Django application. So you can see that I have saved the model to disk, and this code here is to how I will load the model from my disk. So now we will go to the second part, that is building a Django application.